Hi, I'm Ed Parcaut, your host of Inner Edison. I'm here with Dr. Jeff Spencer. How you doing today, sir?
Well, never have a bad day when I'm in the presence of greatness. So thanks for the offer.
I appreciate that little extra there for my listeners.
There you go.
For the listeners I have that don't know who you are, you want to give a brief background of who you are and what you've done? Not, I don't want to get into what you've done. We'll do that later, but just a
Yeah.
little background who you are.
Yeah. Well, again, I historically I was an Olympian. I wanted to be an Olympian when I was 7. I thought that'd be cool, and it took me uh, 10 years to get there. And I had just great help. I had a couple of angels in my life that first off they taught me how to win, and they crafted some extra dimensions in me that gave me the competitive advantage. Can't say enough about them. I owe everything to them and my mentors. I guess also I have a master's degree in sports science, which means that I know how to craft a body that can push. And if you can't push, you're not going to have a good life. And if you can't stay in the game long enough, you're not going to create a legacy that you're capable of. So that's been an asset that's helped me a lot. I also showed my art class in the best galleries in New York City. So there's a huge artistic side to me where I kind of sculpt people and their futures. When I was working with the athletes that helped them win gold medals, business people came to me and wanted to become their own champions, which I helped them become. And so I became this one-stop Jiffy Lube, one-stop shopping center for number one, how do you get to the top and stay there? So really what I do for my clients is that I give them immense clarity. I also give them certainty, and I also give them time compression to be able to achieve that which they're called to achieve in the least time, at least effort. And that's what I do.
Oh, I want to go back to you knew at 7 you want to be Olympian.
I
How did
did.
you know that? Was you watching the Olympics and
Yeah.
you said, I want to do that? Was there
Yeah.
a certain, is that how it worked?
Well, it's actually kind of reverse of that, is that I was a very athletic kid. I loved to throw and jump and do all those types of things. I thought it was a great exploration, and I feel like the Olympics really called me. It just showed up one day, and there was a gravity between me and it. It felt like it pulled me into it, and I researched it. That's all I could think about, and I just had this aspiration. I didn't even know what sport it was gonna be. I wanted to march into the, stadium on the opening day ceremony. That just couldn't get any better than me, and then I found out, 3 or 4 years later that I had this unusual ability on a bicycle, and I figured, "Well, that's where I'm gonna do it," and I had great coaching and crafting of my mentality, so that's, the genesis of that, but I also say that that's an important way that I've always done life. I don't have 10 and 20-year plans. I found that those are way too limiting for me. I can get what I can conceive of, but if I show up for duty and I'm sensitive to those things that are calling me to it, and I show up faithfully to execute those things, life unfolds in a much more effortless way, and the life results are 10 times what I ever could have expected them to be.
Now you were talking about you don't do long-term plans. So what do you normally do? A 1 year, 5 year plan? Or you
No.
just like, this is kind of what I want to do, put it out to the universe and that's what it brings
Yeah,
back? I mean,
again, it's like, it's not what I wanna do, it's like, what am I called to do? So, for example, the Olympics it was a 10-year investment, which I took very seriously, and I showed up for duty. I didn't let the idea do the work for me. I'm the guy that had to turn the pedals to make that happen. But I think there are clues that we get as we go through life. Things occur to us as life potential possibilities. And if we're sensitive enough to that and we kind of get away from our hyper focus and can see these other opportunities show up, and we know how to learn to read how we're called to certain things, I can explain to you exactly what that is to me and why I do it. And I found that my productivity is maybe 10 times your average person, because I found that I always have the energy to do whatever's necessary that I'm called to do. And I want to be very clear that it's not like I'm not capable of making my own decisions. I just know that if I get too academic, then I shortcut my possibilities. That leads to a much lesser life quality. So I'm very ambitious. I don't think anybody works harder and is more studious than myself in doing this. So that's like my secret sauce. Just to say this again, I feel that it's way too limiting in my experience if I do a 20-year plan. I feel that if I say I want to create the first organic garden on Mars, I mean, that's a bit of an absurdity. I mean, I'm not discounting that as being possible, but that's so far out there that there's not something that I immediately engage in my life as I'm living it moment by moment in the here and now.
but aren't you supposed to have some type of goals like that? I mean, for unbelievable. I mean, sometimes I was at an event this last week and basically there was one of the things they're saying is you need to have something that seems unreachable, but you can get there if you focus on it.
I don't think that's true at all. I think there's a lot
Okay.
of people that really focus on a lot of stuff that don't go anywhere. And I think that they're so intimidated by what they're told that they're supposed to do that they don't really believe that they can do it. In my opinion, the most important thing to do is to really learn how to achieve goals. Setting a goal somehow implies that it somehow self manifests magically because we want it bad enough. A lot of people with a lot of will and talent that go nowhere. My dad was an artistic genius for sure, but he died homeless. Why? Because he didn't know how to achieve goals. He knew how to set them. He knew how to make big ones, but he wasn't able to manifest them. So my experience, Ed, tells me that the first thing that we need to do is look at what does it really take and what is the structure of goal achievement. And once we practice that on a small scale, then we start to develop confidence in ourselves. Like I can actually do this. Because rather than just guessing, if we guess we can't get to where we want to go, it's not possible. You may stumble into it, but that's highly unlikely. And then what happens? We don't believe that we're capable of it because the plan that other people told us didn't work out so well. So we think it's us because the experts must be true. So I think that having aspirational goals is okay, but I think that we need to have a vigilant process and course of study. And exactly now that I got this idea, what is it exactly that the prolific achievers know that we don't that makes the difference? It's not education, it's not pedigree, it's not what they were gifted with, is that they know something about life that most people don't. And to me, that's how to achieve a goal. And to me, that's the primal life skill because if we can't do that, then our big dreams just die in our head because they can't find any way into reality. So that's the way that I've kind of always looked at this. And what I do with the clients that I work with and the things that I do teach others, it's let's learn the skill first. And as we build upon it, we develop confidence. We can go to more ambitious goals and we can meet those goals progressively. And eventually we trust ourselves enough. And we have a body of evidence to create a legacy that we're capable of.
If you don't mind, can we stay on this a little bit
Yeah,
longer?
man, let's
I
do
mean,
it. I
because
love it.
I mean, I think this is really important because we're told all the time, make January, you got to put these what you're going to do for the year, you got to put goals together. But if you don't know how to obtain them, it doesn't work. So
You're
how
done.
would you help? How would you help somebody who goes, or what? How do I do this? What's the best way to do this?
Well, the first thing I would say to your audience, just go to beforeyouwin.com, BEFOREYOUWIN, because it explains the model that I use. There's a fairly long video there that I created to share the model with people to look at to get an idea of what it is. So generally speaking, the champions in all disciplines know something that we don't, and that's goal achievement. So my champion's golden rule is you do the homework and the test is easy, meaning that if you know how to prepare and you're properly prepared to start pursuing your goal and you know what you're going to face in the execution of the goal, then you're 99% farther ahead than most people that just think you show up and make it up. So that's what I would say, that there's a methodology to it. First, you prepare. Are you prepared enough to start pursuing the goal? Yes or no? And can you follow the 5 criteria? Have you fulfilled that enough to look at it and say, based upon the criteria, I fulfilled it enough to know that I'm prepared now to actively pursue my goal? Once you're at that point, then the question is, okay, now I'm going to execute and pursue the goal. Do I know the 5 different steps that I need to go through progressively to get from goal inception, first footstep, to jumping into the winner's circle? In that way, you can hold your goal sacred in a vessel that history has proven itself to take you from where you are to where you want to go.
All right, so I'm a little slow today, but this is
That's great,
perfect.
man.
Yeah, because this is like, we've it's a totally different way of looking at it, and that's what I like about it. Because it sounds to me like this is pretty much what I've done, right? I don't make major goals. I study what I want to do, plan, and then focus and go. Is
Correct.
that what's basically you're saying?
100%. Again, for the reason of is that if whatever you intellectually visualize, you're probably capable of a lot more than you think you are. And if you set a goal that's probably going to be too low, actually, unless you set a goal that's too high where you scare yourself because some expert told you to dream as big as possible and somehow everything backfills automatically and you get there. That history does not prove that to be true at all.
Wow.
Never seen it.
And
Never
we've
seen
both been around here pretty
it.
long.
Yeah.
We won't
Yeah.
get into that.
Yeah. I'll be 70 in 3 months. So don't remind
Wow.
me. Actually, 2 months, believe it or
Well, if I'm not around, happy birthday.
not.
All right, so I went to your website. I see it. So everybody, before you win, right?
.com. Yeah.
.com.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, once we have this down, once I research it, I'm looking at it and I set these. This is what you do for everybody that you work with, right?
Well, I have a very vigorous protocol that I go through to ensure that the client is the right client for me and they have the commitment necessary to get to where they want to go. And sort of once we've gone through all of those formalities, then it's a three-step process. The very first thing that we need to do is to determine exactly what their current assets are. Like, where are you in your readiness to actually pursue a goal? Because if we go through the vetting and you're not ready to pursue the goal, well, then we need to make some adjustments here because you don't want to step off a cliff prematurely, you know? So let's make sure that we're really clear on where you are and what your assets are. And then we look at the goal. And then there are many different types of goals. There are big, hairy, audacious goals. There are moonshots. There are simple goals. And then there's the SMART goal. And as far as I know, the people that I work with, they don't care about any of those. They want the right goal. Because if we don't have the right goal, then we may not be able to get there. And so I have a criteria that we look at against the goal that they're proposing to make sure that it does meet the criteria. If it doesn't mean it's not the right goal for later, just mean it's not the right goal for now. So if we have our starting point and we have our goal, it's like a GPS, right? We program in the starting point and the destination. But here's the key here is that if you don't program in the starting point accurately, you're just guessing, then all of a sudden you're starting on the wrong side of the street. You're automatically off course. Therefore, the likelihood of getting to where you want to go becomes severely compromised. And so once we have the starting point and the end point well established because we vetted it, we just didn't guess at it, then we can kind of build the path between where we are and where we want to go that carries the least risk. And once we've done that, then we implement responsibly the goal and we do it within the criteria that I've created for my clients. Once we start the goal, there are 5 things that you need to be aware of. And those are how you avoid preventable problems, and that's how you seize the best opportunities. So that's the way that I do it. And what's really interesting about this, people think, oh, this is way too formal. I feel like I'm in a straitjacket. Oh, I see. Well, you want to go out and guess on it? You know, is this going to be your fourth or fifth failed attempt? Then all of a sudden you think something's wrong with you. I say it's not wrong with us. We're all capable of it. It's just that we haven't learned the methodology yet. So again, that's how I do and what I do with the clients that I work with.
Um, all I'm thinking about is the inner Edison and the mistakes along the way, and how this is so
Yeah.
important that you. One of the things is a lot of people don't know about me is I lost my dad at 12, hairy cell
Oh,
leukemia. He was in the Air Force. You know, he was that whole thing, Agent Orange, and so I mean, I
oh,
didn't. Yeah, all that
no.
stuff. I'm
So
just
sorry.
trying to don't. I appreciate it,
Sorry, man.
but my whole purpose is the fact that didn't have the mentors early in
Correct.
life, right? Didn't have the
Correct.
mom who knew what she was
Correct.
doing, the dad telling me. I mean, totally different with my wife and my kids. She's got her master's degree. She's a nurse at Kaiser, and
Oh, wow,
we,
cool.
our kids are like, leave us alone. You're setting, I have my master's degree. We're telling them you need to do this in life. Whatever you want to do, we're here to focus on that, help you. But what I
Yes.
wanted to get on is I think it's very important to have a mentor and a coach and
Yeah,
the right
absolutely.
coach, because there's a
Absolutely.
lot of coaches out there who say, I'm a coach, and they send you stuff all the time, or you want to learn to be a coach, and they're not the right coach for you. You need to really research, find the right people, get referred to somebody. I mean, just listening to you talk today, Dr. Jeff, it's just like, wow, I totally get what you're talking about. And I mean, I'm not young chicken anymore. I'm in the 50s.
Yeah.
And it would
Agreed.
have been nicer to get to where I wanted to get a lot earlier if I had
Yeah.
the right people,
Yes, agreed.
and that's where this important thing about what I'm talking about on our podcast today is, you're going to make mistakes, but let's make them the right way and go forward from there and learn from them. So I'm not trying to cut you off. I'm just how
Not at all.
important what you've said so far
Thank
today,
you.
that I really appreciate it.
So welcome.
That it's really important to set the right, I don't want to, where you want to go, know where you're at, and then go there forward and set the right goals as you stated.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And what I'll add to that too, Ed, is that it takes about 50 years to have a complete first cycle through life where you've kind of seen everything for the first time, but you don't know that yet. So a lot of the decisions that we're making between, like, let's say 20 and 50, a lot of that is an hypothesis against what we're told by the experts, but we've not experienced it yet. Or worse yet, we leave it to our human nature to inform us about what it is based upon how we feel. And, as I tell my daughter, well, there's always time to screw it up. I'm going to tell you what history tells it to be. You don't feel like this, but I'm telling you that history doesn't support what you're saying. So you can come back and we'll have a sober conversation about it once you try it your way. And so, why a coach is really necessary, in my opinion. And I'll also say that I don't know anybody that plays a big game that doesn't have advisors. I mean, the big's the big. Like, when I work with you too, Bono's got his voice coach. I mean, Bono, you don't need a voice coach. You're Bono, but he knows that he'll get sloppy. He'll make an assumption that isn't true, and he can ruin a concert because he made an assumption. So again, we need a truth serum in our life that helps us actually protect ourselves from our assumptions. Otherwise, you may lose 2 or 3 years overnight by doing something that you thought was right. I mean, how many people have actually done something that really seemed right, but it ended up so wrong? Well, it seemed really right at the time. Well, that's correct, but you didn't really read what it was as being true, and life doesn't care about what you think, it only cares about what it really is. So therefore, you'll have an extra 2 or 3 years or 4 years or 10 years to think about it. And in my opinion, that if you have good counsel that isn't really about your ambition, but understands the methodology of what it takes to go from where you are to where you want to go. I said earlier that I had a coach as a cyclist, 3-time Olympian, 5-time national champion. And he said to me, Jeff, here's the deal. Uh, Winning and success is a learned skill. So I'm going to teach you the skill of winning. The winning will come, but I need to teach you the skill of winning first. So it wasn't all about trying harder. It wasn't all about your talent. It wasn't all about how bad you wanted it. But it's like, let's take a look at what history tells us. I will show you the methodology of how you read the terrain to know what to do when so that you will succeed. It's not a guessing game, it's deliberate. And so I had the advantage of that. So all I can say is that it's really important to find people that are older than yourself that you trust and have a personal resonance with to be sound counsel. That's what my dad didn't have. The last time I saw my dad when I was 13. So we both kind of had the same thing, but for different reasons, and my dad's situation didn't have to happen, but he didn't have anybody to help interpret what he would be facing in a way that he wouldn't talk himself into what it wasn't and believe that what it was. So for example, like if you have a goal of most any goal that has a high aspirational value to it, there's always a place that you're going to get to where you start to stall out. I call that the daily grind, and you're gonna hate it. You're gonna say, "This is the worst place in my life. I hate this. I don't even wanna get up anymore because I'm not getting anything back close to what I think that I deserve to have for the time and effort that I'm putting into it. Therefore, maybe I'm gonna quit." I see this all the time. But the reality of it is that you have to have that place because your plan is what you think it's going to be. And then when it hits reality, then you're going to be faced with what it really is. And there's going to be skills that you're going to have to learn that you didn't foresee. And now you're experiencing that. So as you start to take on the skills that were revealed to you in the daily grind, you become more competent. And eventually one day you're going to get up and you're going to believe that you could do it because you didn't quit prematurely. So again, a lot of the things that we think to be true aren't true at all. And history tells us that it's not. It's just that our human nature always wants a shortcut. And we'll pay hundreds and thousands of dollars for a shortcut that promises an easy path to get to where we want to go. It doesn't work like that. So, again, learn the process of goal achievement to take control of the process and then learn to trust yourself and your abilities. Otherwise, you're always at the hand of some expert that may be telling you the wrong thing that's tantalizing to your human nature, but can't deliver on the promise.
Wow. Now I want to go back to that word winning, right? Because
Mhm.
I've seen people who are don't think that they get in their own way because they don't know that they can win and they should get there and accomplish stuff. Right? They're afraid of winning and afraid of exceeding in life. Have you run into that a lot
Well,
with people?
I think that it's very common, but this goes back to the same dilemma. Anybody that tells me that I'm afraid of success or I'm afraid of failure, what they're really saying is that I don't know the process to get me from where I am to where I want to go. Because if I gave you a recipe that was personalized for you and you looked at it and your mind could accept what it said and it was the right size steps and pacing, you would say, for sure, I can do this, because I have evidence that I could do it. So the idea of guessing big and wanting it and manifesting it because you think about it, and my intention is to do it. Okay, that's all great, but where are the skills that are required to make it happen? Are those being built? And if they're not, then our anxiety goes up and we get afraid. Well, you should be afraid because fear is your friend. It's saying you're not ready for this. And a lot of people are told, well, fear is the problem. You overcome fear by doing it. I think that's the most ridiculous advice anybody could be given because, fear is your friend. Like I'm sure you had that in the military. It's like, stop, don't do this. And you stop and you realize, oh, I'm glad I didn't do that because there was a high risk here that I didn't see, but I trusted my fear rather than just do it to get over it. I stopped and paused and I looked for it. So there's a lot of that. And also, people will discount their gifts as being insignificant. Yeah, I have this gift, I know that, but it's so easy for me. It's kind of like cheating, and I won't feel like I've really, earned my good night's sleep or earned my stuff if it wasn't hard. I mean, that's complete mythology. So we have this whole other side of this one giant lie. It's mythology that we tell ourselves that about you can't do it. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff in there that talks us out of it. And but it seems right to our human nature, but it's really not in terms of looking at the reality of what experience really tells us. And part of my job with my clients and the people that I work with is to demystify the process. I've been in this game for 70 years. I don't know what that's supposed to feel or look like, but I got a 20-year-old daughter. So over time, you start to see common patterns start to emerge, and you really see, oh, well, I guess Hollywood lied about this. It isn't just about sex, drug, and rock and roll. I tried that for a while, but it didn't work out so well. Maybe it's something different. And so, because of my experience, I just want to share with people what history tells us to be true so that you don't have to have the heartache and the misery that most people inherent tragically to the point where they stop believing in themselves. But it's generally because they weren't following a set of historically proven steps to get to where they wanted to go. And I think that's a tragedy, actually.
I think so too. I'm gonna stay right here on achievements. What's your
Yeah.
proudest achievement?
Oh, for sure, the adoption of my daughter, without a doubt. The 12 years ago, at the age when I was 58, we adopted a 10-year-old from Colombia. Um, uh, I had no idea. Well, I kind of did actually, but when we brought her back to America, she didn't speak Spanish, we didn't speak English, or vice versa. She didn't speak
Right.
English, we didn't speak Spanish, so we had no language. I mean, literally no language. So we started with a few primitive, something, like don't talk, sleep, eat. Um, she had no school. So imagine coming to America with no school. I mean, what are you going to do at 10? How are you going to make up that 10 years? I mean, the formidable 10 years, and that 10 years was getting beat up and physically abused since the age of 4. PTSD, ADHD off the scale, every known risk factor to humanity for a life gone wrong. She had it. Parasitic ridden body, just a stented abdomen because of all the parasites. I mean, it was as bad as it gets. And I told my wife, I said, look, uh, this is formidable. And we decided that we just didn't want to save a life, but we wanted to cultivate and craft a potential. And I feel like everybody should be given that opportunity. And that's what we wanted to give our daughter. So I told my wife, it's like starting tonight, I'm going to have to retract 90% of my professional availability along with the income to be her father. I made that conscious choice because we asked her into our world, and me being an Olympian, the idea of a bronze medal relationship or being a bronze medal parent is not my idea of fun. And I'm not in a hurry to create a bronze or win a silver medal either. I'm just calibrated towards one thing, and that's gold medal. That's my standard, just the way it is. It's how I'm hardwired. So we put everything that we had into developing her and the challenges that she faced that she didn't ask for, which are formidable. I mean, horrific to the nth degree, just unspeakable in terms of the challenges that she didn't ask for, that we were faced in helping her hopefully move beyond the demons that come along with that experience. It took everything that we've got. And I'm proud to say right now that she'll be graduating from college in 4 months here. But what it is that I learned from that experience was incalculable, and the value that I place on life and our capability as humans to be of support and encouragement to others in a right way. For sure. I love that you can love anybody. You don't need a special reason. Love is a one-way street. You don't give to get. Whatever it takes to do the job, you show up and you do it, because that's what love is. I also recognize that sometimes you got to trust the process because there is no visibility forward. Our common unit was a day. Just to get through one day, just to get to the end of it without a major catastrophe was our life for 10 or 12 years, actually. And I realized that there's got to be an inherent trust in the process because sometimes that's all you got, and that you never discount the possibility of a miracle. You always got to hold that out that it's going to happen. You know what you did for us. Eventually, after 10 years, my wife cried every day for 9 years and 10 months. It was so difficult. I mean, literally cried every day. It was that hard. But yet, eventually, we hit critical mass. Boom, and then there was a change that happened overnight that led to kind of where we are currently with the relationship. So that and the reason why I want to share this is that there's something deep within all of us that you're never going to get to if life's too good because you're never going to ask a deeper set of questions that will take you to the depths of what you're capable of and perhaps your true life purpose, unless you have something that is so difficult that is so relenting that you again ask a deeper set of questions. It's too easy to hide in the fabric of all alike or easiness. We don't really want that. We want to find purpose in life. We want to have a reason to get up. And so for me, by far, my proudest and most important achievement, I didn't feel like I was giving up anything. People say, well, at the height of your game, I mean, wasn't that difficult to give up where you were? No, not really, because I know what my motivation is. If a deal was made, then you honor and you deliver on the deal. So whatever it takes to do that, there's always a reward on the other side of that. And as I told my wife, this kind of gives God another way of showing us the faster path to a bigger, better that we could never have uh, scripted in our own mind, which happened to be the truth. So my proudest moment for sure.
Well, it's amazing, because
Yeah, thanks.
that means a lot that you put out that time for somebody else, and then,
Easy.
that's just huge. I thought so for just so you know who I am, I have a daughter with special needs,
Oh,
so that
oh,
was grow and that was a lot for us, for a
understood.
period of time there, that was a lot. I took away from
Oof,
business, same thing,
yeah.
and then I adopted my wife's 3 children,
Oh,
so that was yeah, yeah, so
way to go, Dad.
yeah, it's it's important to just they were not in the same thing, but somebody not in your life. I didn't have my dad, so I totally understand not having somebody there. Right, he was
Yeah,
there, but then he was gone,
yeah,
and don't realize how things in life affect you until later. Like you're sitting there, all of a sudden there's a commercial about the son calling dad home and
yeah,
saying, "Hey, I'm here," and you're like, I don't
yeah.
have that,
They have that.
So it
Yeah.
was really important for me to make sure that I was there for them, and I'm not a perfect person. I do the best we can. And I mean, you
Yes,
are
we all.
amazing for what you did with that. That's just
Thank
amazing.
you. Thank you.
Um, so that's just, I mean, I still get stuck on that whole, that's a lot, I understand a lot of people when they would say, why would you do that at the top of your career? But that makes you such a better person so that when you do come back, whether you knew it or not, what you could see things differently. Would you say you see
Yeah.
things a little differently than that you did before?
Oh, yeah, there's no question about it. I mean, again, unless we have something like that, you're never gonna find your best self. It's just too easy to hide and insulate yourself from your potential if life is too good, for sure. So, to me, it was a blessing. There was no option. It was a willing choice that I made. I'm glad I did. That's the only way I know how to engage life with respect, as I tell my daughter that if you don't follow the gifts that you're given, you don't cultivate and grow those, then you're turning your back on why you're here on this planet. So, again, with my daughter, every time she would leave to go to school, she wasn't and didn't understand English. I would just tell her, don't be average. I told her that every day when she would leave for school. She didn't even know what I was saying, but I wanted to start to groove and etch the brain to hear this, the last thing that dad says, so that eventually when she understands the words, that will be kind of inscribed as a lens that she looks at life through each and every day.
So you told us in the beginning that your age and everything.
Yeah.
So what is the world going to do when you're not here any longer and the way you think? Or have you mentored somebody who kind of thinks exactly the same way of you? I mean, are you putting those plans in place? Because I think that's very important that we get more of you out there.
Yeah, well, thanks. Thanks. That's very thoughtful of you to say. Yes, during the 11, 12 years that I was raising my daughter, I was still working, but with a select set of individuals that play at the level that I'm used to advising, and I was codifying all of my information. All the processes that I use have now been codified, and they're going to be working their way into the public domain where they will be available for other people. So if people just please go to beforeyouvin.com. And there's actually a white paper that you can get as a gift. It's called How Not to Blow It Just Before You Win. because I see this all the time. People get to a point where a personal breakout's coming, then they screw it up somehow, and they forfeit the opportunity to move to that next level. Please go to beforeyouwin.com, put your name in there. You'll get the white paper, how not to blow it just before you win. And while you're waiting for that, you can watch the video that shows with you the model that I've created. That's called the Goal Achievement Roadmap, is what it is. It's a formalized program, the Goal Achievement Roadmap, that explains the model that you and I have been discussing here, Ed. They can get a fairly lengthy preview into that. And there are some other things that will be coming that are equally important. Go to Instagram, Dr. Jeff Spencer. I have tons of videos there that are 5 to 8 minutes just about what I see and what the distinction is and what the champions in all disciplines know that we don't, that we can take the real lessons from, not the cheerleading sessions that get us all excited that go nowhere, but they're really come from my experience working with, I've helped athletes win over 40 gold medals in the Olympics, world championships, Tour de France's, national championships, et cetera. Working with you two behind stage with some of the most prolific achievers of our time. These are all things that I want to share with people because I just really feel like the conversation that should be had about what the process of achievement and living a life of value and contribution really is, it's not really being properly conveyed, that leaves us confused and upset. And then we start to discount ourselves. And I think none of that is acceptable in my view. So that's a way to stay in touch and stay current as these things become available. Then you'll have access to those as they become available.
Dr. Jeff, thank you so much for being here today. It's been
No,
a
you're welcome.
really eye opener, to the point where, I mean, you're talking about the coaches and the cheerleaders. That was one of my biggest issues going for the last 20 some years is when you hire a coach, they just want to be a cheerleader. They're not a true coach. They're not the person you want meant to help you get
Yeah.
to where you want to be. And it's nice that there is a lot people like yourself out there that know exactly how to get people there and how to start. So I really appreciate you being on today.
Thanks. Just made all the world a difference just in hearing your story. And I know you're up to great stuff. And just remember, everybody, there's only one of you in all of creation. There's nobody like you that qualifies you to do some extraordinary things. You just need to connect with your talents and learn the process of goal achievement. And that's the way you make your best contribution. Thanks, Ed.
Thank you, sir.